Fantastic. So, welcome to another Run Wild with Us, Ask Us Anything. I'm Lisa Kastner. I'm the founder and executive editor of Running Wild and RIZE. I am here with two of our amazing editors. Peter Wright, who's one of our acquisition editors, as well as a standing editor, and Amy Hardy, who is one of our fantastic, phenomenal editors. So we're here to answer any questions you guys may have. You can ask us whatever you want. Um, I know we had a couple of questions that were posted on the chat during the last 2 weeks. I apologize for that. We were originally scheduled to do this last Thursday, and I came down with some variants of the flu that my tookus did not get out of bed for 48 hours. So that sadly resulted in us not having this. Um, with that, I do want to actually first just start off and ask Amy and Peter, how are you guys doing? What's new going on? Anything you guys want to talk about? Let's start with Peter.
Things are going well. There's nothing really exciting or anything like that coming up, but the writing's going well, the editing's going well, so I'm in a good place. It's very fortunate.
Awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Very nice. How about you, Amy?
So we are in my household getting ready for Halloween,
Ooh,
and that includes lots of movies, lots of going to pumpkin patches and things like that. And this weekend we're going to start. Every year we do a family Halloween film. So we're going to film this weekend and then have it ready for Halloween. So that's pretty fun. So personally, that's what we're kind of doing this weekend. But I've been, in the meantime, doing lots of work on some amazing authors that will be published coming up soon. One of them we just got done, so he's ready to go. It's a guy named Mark Lopez, and we just finished all of his edits. His story is about a girl who's about 12 years old, and she loses her parents and then moves in with her uncle. And it's a rough kind of coming of age story, but it happens to a lot of people, the kind of things that she goes through. So it's the way he writes is breathtaking. He really thinks about character, about setting. And then I have a few other projects that I've been working on as well, kind of in the early stages of editing. So yeah, very excited to see what they come up with, and I'll be sure to keep in touch and let you guys know, keep you updated as well, because it's really exciting to see all these stories come to life.
oh, fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. And I'm still working on the same stories I was working on before. I can tell my authors are knee deep in revisions, which is always exciting. And I'm actually in the beginning stages. I've written about 18,000 words for the follow up to Cure, which actually
Oh,
came out on Tuesday of this week.
that's so exciting.
So,
Awesome.
if you guys who are watching, if you want, you look up Cure. It's under the pen name of Callie Metis, Kalimetis, and with my New Jersey accent. How fabulous is that? And if you go and look up any ebook, it's on sale for 99 cents this week until October 24th. But I personally prefer paperback, in part because I just think paperback's a lot more fun to work on, so or to read. And yeah, I mean, we're just like, knocking stuff out. So very exciting. I I'm not sure what I'm doing for Halloween this year. I did get my uh costume, which is like a onesie skeleton,
Mm-hmm.
because I thought that would be kind of fun. So, well, I am the person that I don't just give away candy. I get like the full size Snickers bars, like that
Oh,
kind of thing.
you're the
So,
house to go to.
right, exactly. And we live like literally diagonally from an elementary and middle school.
Mhm.
So, I just have to hit up Costco and get my like bags and bags of full size Snickers bars, and we'll like totally take it from there. So But yeah, really, really exciting. Um, we've got so Jeffrey Oliver, and we've also got Ben White, who just joined us. How's it going, young man?
I made it.
Woo! That
It
is
is going
awesome.
well.
How has your week been?
It has been good. It's been productive. I'm close to sending 2 novels to the next stages,
Oh wow, check you
and
out.
and that's a pretty good feeling.
That's awesome. That's
Well,
amazing.
we got too
Congratulations.
close because one of them I've had since May.
That I don't know why
We're
you make that
close.
sound like it's like a we've had books that it took like a year or two for revision, so May is not a bad thing.
Yeah. Well, it's I've got a bunch more behind me, so it's just a plateau for a little bit, and then we shoot off again.
Got it. Got it. Cool. Jeffrey Oliver says, swinging by to say hello. Busy week. Good to see you, Jeffrey. Caroline Davenport says, glad to see you're better. Oh, thank you. It is going around. I might not last very long as I have an upper respiratory virus. Oh, that's awful. I'm so sorry. Yeah, definitely go get your rest on, man. Don McIntyre says, hey guys. So Lisa, how exciting was the book launch? It was a lot of fun. A lot of old friends and new friends showed up at the book signing. We actually had a lot of pre-orders and requests for like personalized book signings. So which was really fun. That was really nice of people to do the pre-order. And we did it in an interview style with an old friend of mine, Tone. So Tone is actually someone we've published before, but it's always neat to have that Q&A with somebody who actually knows you, because you can act stupid and they don't think that you're an idiot, or maybe they do think you're an idiot and it's okay because they're an idiot too. I don't know. Let the mail begin. But yeah, no, it was absolutely a lot of fun. I really feel blessed to have so many amazing people in my life and just around us in general. Like so. And then Jeffrey says, awesome, I'll check it out. We have one releasing tomorrow called New World Monsters. First illustrated collection. Oh, that sounds like a lot of fun. Caroline says, you got to wear the costume on Zoom for us. I was thinking about that. Let's see. Maybe I'll show up with my costume on Thursday. That could absolutely be a lot of fun. Brittany Bell Connolly says, good evening. Nice to see you. Nice to see you too. Thank you for joining us. Jeffrey says, I'm an idiot and I'm proud. We've all got to be proud, man. You got to just wear it. Dawn McIntyre says, my copy is going to be delivered tomorrow. Looking forward to getting my book plate. I totally owe you a book plate. It is going to be in the mail shortly. I actually have to hit up UPS in the next like 2 days. So my apologies for it taking so long to get to you. Now, we did get a couple of questions. Someone had actually asked, we got some really good questions actually for the book launch. We had gotten a couple of smart ass questions. Like someone asked something like, why is our government so horrible? And of course, my response, which I didn't do then, but I'll do it now, is you do know that the dollar is worth more than the euro now, which that's actually never absolutely ever occurred in history. So I'm thinking economically, we're probably doing pretty damn well. But if you want to believe something else, go for it. It's all good. Someone had asked, how do you create boundaries for your stories, right? So I'm actually going to talk. I thought that was a really interesting question. I'm going to toss that out to everybody on this. So like when you're actually writing and doing research, how do you create like limits or decide what the limits are going to be for the actual narrative? And just because Ben is right across from me, I'm going to start guess across from me. I'm going to start with Ben.
Oh, because I was 6 minutes late. That's why.
That's right, man. You got to pay for it. Sorry.
But I think I find myself adding stuff that is almost mystical or magical, and I need to throttle back on that and set the boundaries back into reality, to where as much as I love for coincidence to work out to where it's kind of really interesting and reflective of the story, there's a possibility where it gets into too unbelievable, and so I keep an eye out for that unbelievability to set the boundary. I think that's the best way to say that, and
Interesting.
and make sure that the story stays within the parameters of what could happen, and whether it ever did or will ever, that doesn't matter. It's in the realm of possibility. So that's where I like to keep the boundaries as my guardrails.
Got it. Cool. Peter, what about you?
Well, the story I'm working on right now is very close to reality, and it's a subject that is politics, something that everybody knows something about. So I have to keep my boundaries. I have to keep myself in line with what's believable and true, and make a story out of that narrative, as opposed to going completely AWOL and just making stuff up that is unbelievable at the government level. So I need to keep a shoulder in, 1 foot in and 1 foot out. So I keep the narrative going, I keep the story going, the characters believable, but I stay away from too much realism, because I can't reinvent what's already out there in front of everybody. So that's where I kind of stay in my lane. Oh my God, I use a business term. I got to stay within my narratives to keep my characters real, and kind of like sidestep areas where I might be moving into a political world that more people know about than I do, that people know about more than I do, so that I don't come across as just stupid or silly.
Got it. That's kind of cool, actually. How about you, Amy?
Well, I usually get stuck in like the research everything instead of writing phase. So I try to make sure that I have like checkpoints for myself.
Mm-hmm.
And usually I have to write the story first, honestly. So I'm going to have to, I use a basic sort of structure for what I want to happen to my character. I write it out. And then, like most authors, you step back and you say, okay, that was the story. Where do I need to go in and maybe research some more, add some more.
Yeah.
But usually my boundaries are like trimming down, if that makes sense. So, the audience doesn't need to know everything all the time. Sometimes it's good if you wait and then weave some of that story into the action or into conversations with other characters.
Mm-hmm.
So I really try to be honest to what my character is going through. When I'm reading someone else's work as well, I usually look at those first 10 to 20 pages and I say, okay, this is important to the story. Is it where the action starts? Because that's kind of where we need to start with our novel.
Mm-hmm.
And if it isn't where the, action starts, I usually take it and we'll put it somewhere else in the novel. We keep the story true, but we really want to engage readers at that time. So yeah, that's kind of how I think, is trying to stay true to the story, but also engage that reader, because that's the whole point. You're not going to get your character arc if they don't pick up the book and keep reading it as well.
Now, do you guys, so Caroline actually asked this of Ben, but I'm going to ask everyone. Do you use an outline? And to tag on to that, if so, similar thing, like how do you decide on what's going to be included in the outline? Like, what does your outline generally look like? This time I'm going to actually start with Amy and go the reverse route.
Yeah, so I usually always have an outline because I need to know like where it's going. That being said, though, as I am writing my character out, if it doesn't align with the outline that I've set for myself, it's going to change. So, I do like a little bit of both. I'll have like a rough outline, and then I do I call coloring in. And so I'll add all the details, all the backstory, the dialogue, stuff like that. And then when I take a step back after that first draft, usually it's pretty apparent what needs to move, what needs to come out, what I need to add in as well. So always start with an outline, and then, stay true to my character after that.
Cool. How about you, Peter?
I kind of go along with the same attitude. I actually have a area on my wall over there that's covered with Post-it notes that has color coordination about what character is in the scene, where they are in the scene, and I can move them around based on how I want the story to flow.
Damn.
But then while I'm writing, I'm not exactly perusing the outline. I'm kind of going with my gut and what the characters are saying and what they're moving with. But I do have a basic track to begin the story with.
Oh, cool! Wow. How about you, Ben?
like I want to answer after that answer.
After the color coordination.
Well, it got me out of having an answer. So yes.
Okay. Let's go 180 from that, Peter. It's I'll see the ending first, I think, and then the closest to an outline I think I've ever gotten is just to think about how many chapters I want. Maybe name the chapters as this is the mile markers across the way, but those inevitably change. And so because the ending changes, even though I had this great ending that started me to start the story, it always changes, and it's based on what the characters do and say and who they are and which ones because they're all in danger. They're all in danger.
Obviously. Oh, that's great. Don McIntyre says, "Thank goodness someone else uses the Post-it note method." So you're in good company there, Peter. So I also outline. I use it as a way to also create boundaries, and I do something very similar to what Amy mentioned. So I'll do a ton of research. I'll create an outline. It's a pretty high level outline. It enables me to do what Peter referenced, where I know who's in what scene. And it also helps me realize, like, if I want somebody in a scene, because maybe the first shot at the outline, I might only have like 2 characters in a scene. And then I realize, well, wait a minute, if I add this guy, this will be a lot more interesting because there's more conflict going on among those characters. Or there's, there are more things that can occur that'll help drive the part of the narrative forward. But that outline it'll be like first is the outline, and then I flesh out the outline, and then I go back again and flesh it out more so that you actually know what these characters look like, and you understand the environment and things like that. Because I have a tendency, I'll be kind of skeletal, and then I flesh that out, and then I go back again and I start taking out things that it doesn't really have any pertinence to the story itself. It doesn't drive anything forward. It doesn't benefit any characters. It doesn't help the reader in any capacity. And then I'll go back again, and I use Donald Moss's, I'm like, do I have it here? How to Write a Breakthrough Novel, hit the workbook, because there are key elements that he recommends you kind of look for and make sure that you have it covered throughout the actual narrative that helps keep the readers engaged. So I'll go through another pass with that. And then once I've basically done all of those passes, then it goes off to my editor, who then gives me tons of great recommendations that I'm like, you know what, you're right. I need to do all this other stuff. And we go to town again. So it's definitely not there's just an outline and then ta-da, you suddenly have this amazing work. There's definitely, multiple revisions that are
multiple.
Oh,
that
yeah,
is key. Yeah.
Multiple. So Caroline asks, how does everyone start on a computer or a pen and paper or like a legal pad? Like how do you just get even that first little germination of an idea? Where do you start? This time I'm going to go with Peter and then Amy and then Ben.
I'm going to say what I should do. Than what I do, actually. I should
Okay.
start with pen and paper because it taps into a different part of my brain when I'm writing things out as opposed to when I'm typing. Just a different flow, and it slows me down. It puts the brakes on, so I'm not going off in as many tangents because I've still got to keep the story going on the page. Okay. Now the downside of that is that my writing is not very legible. So sometimes I have trouble reading it after a couple hours of writing. So I tend to skew more towards the computer, but ideally it would be pen and paper, then move it to the computer, because what you start out with organically, when you move it to the computer, you're putting it through a separate filter in your brain that you now, when you're transcribing it, you say, oh, well, let's do this instead, or let's do that instead. The tangent that I'm talking about, but you already got the base story in place. So that's kind of how I should be doing it, but I go back and forth depending on if I'm on the road. I always have a notebook with me and a pen just in case an idea does come up, or I want to scribble something out about a scene. But it's I tend to work more on the computer.
Cool. How about you, Amy?
So I usually do morning pages every morning. So I write down, freehand 3 pages. And sometimes I'll write down like characters or certain lines, and I'll use that time in the morning where I'm still and not really awake yet to really explore what that is. And usually I'll write it down, and sometimes I'll pick it back up the next morning. And I like to think of it as writing just to myself, right? I had this idea. This is where I think I could go with it. So it really just starts with a lot of brainstorming before I write any kind of formal outline. I try to think about the character, who is this person? What are they going through? Like, what is their big conflict? And then how does that manifest in their life? How would that best play out so that they could become, who they're supposed to be? So sometimes that's just like a line that gets stuck in my head. Sometimes I'll have a dream that's like, ooh, this character was really cool. Or maybe I'll watch a movie, something like that. That just plants something in myself. And usually I take a drive after I've been writing about something for a while. I'll take a drive and I'll just think about this character, and I'll just let myself imagine. Sometimes I'll take a walk, anything that's like idle, where I can have like things passing by that I'm not actually like doing something, because I have a hard time of like just relaxing sometimes. I'm always trying to do other things. But yeah, that's where it really starts, is brainstorming 100%. And then I will handwrite an outline, but then I'll just transpose that to like a Google Doc or something like that. And I'll, plan out each of the scenes. And then I usually write it on a Google Doc is kind of my go-to, because I will sit in, whatever kids practice that day, and I will type it out on my phone, whatever ideas I have. It's really convenient. So yeah, usually I end up on the computer.
Cool. All right, Ben, your turn.
This is more from the poetry point of view, because I start with pen and paper to really answer the question first. But it's a free flow of ideas captured on the page, and then I will turn the page in the journal to a clean page and copy the second draft will be a cleaner copy of the line breaks and making sure the internal rhymes fit, and then make sure that it works its way down to where it needs to end. And then I'm looking at about 30 journals that I need to type up, which that's the downside of the way I, because you've got to have the third version typed up, and even in the third version there's some slight changes. Mostly it goes down, it's typed up like it went. On the novel side, I would rather work on the computer, because it's I hate typing stuff up, and so if I type it in, it's already there, so I can look at it then. So it's easy, because I hate looking at especially a longer piece when you're looking at the journal and you're typing it in. I always get lost, but
Oh, okay.
that's the approach. So, but it's also probably why I have a novel that is getting older as we speak,
Ah,
and maybe not farther away from being unfinished. Well, yeah, it is. So the idea is
got it.
probably they're captured somewhere.
Got it. And I do all of it. It just depends on what it is. Like I have an idea for an abandoned haunted zoo, and it's completely based on Griffith Park in California, Los Angeles, California, is an abandoned zoo. It's the old zoo that was replaced by the most recent Los Angeles County Zoo, and it's actually really cool to go hike. But yeah, one time when I went hiking there, it was the sun was going down and it was just spooky enough for you to go, "Hey, this could actually be kind of cool." But then, like, if someone reaches out to me and says, "Hey, would you be interested in writing a short story for us?" Then I might brainstorm off with them, like, well, what are you looking for, and that kind of thing. And so there's like the high level idea that'll sit in my inbox for ages until I have a chance to actually write it, and then there's ones where it's more like when I used to write as a journalist, and you're kind of given the assignment, you know what the arc's going to be, and then you just kind of knock it out. So and then I used to handwrite things more so. Now what it's more like is, as I'm writing like a bigger piece, if there are key elements of the story that need to be addressed later on within the narrative, I write my notepads. Actually, it's full of stuff like that. It's not the actual arc itself. It's not like a complete scene. It's like, don't forget, Joe is an alcoholic, or, whatever. And, Mary isn't just his sister, she's his, first girlfriend, and he didn't know it, or I have no idea. I just made that up. But, like it'll, like, if there are certain, like, twists to the different characters and the different narrative elements, like I'll take notes on them as I'm going along, so that I don't lose that thread, or like that sub theme later on in the story, because sometimes it's very easy, especially when you're researching and you're finding all this cool stuff, to go off on a tangent and forget that, this actually had nothing to do with that. I probably should not have added that in. I just lost 30 pages for no real reason other than that was cool at the time. So
Lisa, why are you talking to me right now? No.
Right, exactly. How did we suddenly change from third person to first person?
Yep.
It was just fun to do it in the moment. So, ta-da! Oops. Yeah. Actually, someone asked another really interesting question the other day, which was, how do you break, if you have writer's block, how do you get rid of writer's block? And why don't we start with Ben this time, and then just go Ben, Peter, Amy.
I like to mishear things because when you don't hear things right, it causes you to think about what you did hear. And it's my mother was listening to the radio once, and they were talking about it being warm and muggy, and what she heard was a war man's monkey. And so when you hear things, and that's where I got it in the practice, even though I hear it, I say, well, what could I have heard of that? And so it helps the imagination go to a conversation that never really happened. And I find that to help with the writing, because now you're in a different mindset. And other ways are listen to music and try to hear the lyrics. I don't care much for. I'm not as interested in the music as I am about the lyrics of songs. And then there's a lot of ideas that come, and I think it goes back to Amy's getting in and driving. There's a lot of ideas that come from behind the steering wheel, and it's a great time to stop and think. And a lot of times you may be driving along with people that you've known or philosophers that you haven't, but they're there and they're talking to you, and that gives you the material to come back and write. And it's for me, it's a great approach to just keep putting it on paper.
Got it.
So what's writer's block? I don't even know what that is.
Never happens.
Never.
Never.
How about you, Peter?
Well, I look at writing as work, and work is just work. It's something that you do, and if something's not working correctly, if the novel I'm working on isn't moving forward and I don't know what to do, I'll start revising a poem, or write a new poem, or write an essay, just to keep the juices flowing, so that when I get back to my novel, part of my brain has been thinking about that novel and where I'm at while I'm writing these other things. So I'm able to channel that, hopefully, when I get back to the main story. But basically, just keep moving the pen, keep typing. I mean, it's not always going to be easy. Sometimes it's going to be hard, but it's just work. The art comes later, but the writer's block, you just got to push right through it. You have to.
How about you, Amy? What do you do?
So I also am
Not
a
that
big
you
fan
ever
of the
have
drive.
writer's block.
No, what is
No,
that? I don't
never.
No, I mean, it does happen to everyone where you're like, okay, even if you have a great outline and you know where they're gonna go, sometimes there's that bit in the middle where you're like, okay, well, how do I get them there? Like, how do I do this? And usually I'll flag my novel like 20 pages earlier, and I'll go and read what's happening before I'm stuck. And I won't do anything. I'll go for a drive. I'll do some poetry. I will play with the kids. We're making our little Halloween film. We'll do whatever it is that's fun, that is play. And then, like you guys were saying, your mind's going to be thinking about it. And so I'll go back to that 20 pages earlier and say, okay, this is where I'm setting everything up later. Does this work? Number one, because sometimes it's just you haven't set up the right, conflict yet. So I'll go back and I'll make sure that my conflict is engaging and, add where I can. And I just read a really cool article that was about like a character conflict is different from action. And you really need both in a novel. You need to have, something that the main character is struggling with, but you need action to drive the plot along and to keep readers on the page so that they care about your character. So I try to think about both in that 20 pages before. Usually it's because I don't have a lot of action going on. Maybe I'm too focused on the character. So I try to balance it out. And like you guys are saying, just taking a break, doing something else, your mind is going to take care of all the things that you're thinking about. And then going back, like Peter said, going back, you got to work at it. It's just a process that you got to go through. You're not going to get it right every time the first time, and that's okay, as long as you keep with it. Most novels do not come to fruition. I think it's like 99% of people don't write that first novel. So just keep at it. I mean, it's definitely worth it once you get there.
It's interesting. That's a really good point around, you just have to let yourself, it's okay to not know what's going to happen on these couple of pages and just write whatever, right? Just keep going. It's for, I do kind of what everyone's described. Like, I'll write the skeleton of whatever it is, full well knowing that it's missing, significant portions. But if I truly don't have an arc, this is actually advice I gave one of my mentees for the Horror Writers Association. look up the topic that you are writing about, because you will be shocked at how many real life articles exist associated with this. So an example would be my mentee is writing a novella about killer bugs, and he got stuck. So he Googled, killer bugs, and guess what? There are killer bugs in Tunisia right now. So that gave him, right, like this bevy of material that he could then use as a baseline for, like, well, how are they killer, and what are the side effects, and how do they swarm, and I mean, you name it, right? So it's amazing the stuff that you or I, at least, would have never thought would actually be a topic. Would have never thought that there would be an article about it. But man, all you got to do is just Google it. And yeah, you would really be surprised at what you could find. So, Caroline says, just out of curiosity, does anyone find that stories friends have told them of interesting aspects of something someone tells you helps you create a character? I have a friend whose mother played the banjo, which started a book for me, Banjo Queen. Actually, the long title became Our Mother Was a Banjo Queen and Our Father Drank Through All Our Lives. Wow, that's really crazy. And with that, I think let's start with Peter, and then Amy, and then Ben.
It does filter into my characters, things that I notice, things that I pick up, during my daily life. I try not to make characters like real people that I know, because I've done that in the past and people don't always get happy because they recognize themselves.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. But yeah, I'm always picking up stuff and like writing it down in my notebook, just phrases or turns of phrase, because you'll just hear something, you'll just stop. He's like, that could be something. It just could be just two completely random words stuck together in a sentence that makes sense for this one particular thing, but could be expanded or expounded upon throughout a story, a short story, or a novel. I think so. Cool. Yes, I use external input often.
How about you, Amy?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of do the same thing. Like, I'll write down, especially little lines that I hear. Like, I was teaching one day, and a kid said, "This is the worst Wednesday of my life." And I was like, oh my God, that's a poem, And I wrote it down and I just worked it out. And it became a whole poem on its own. I was like, man, the angst in that, and like the worst Wednesday, how specific, just, It was really cool. But stuff like that has shown up in lots of my short stories, novels, not, like Peter was saying, not exactly characters, but it'll usually be like a snippet of something I saw in a movie or heard someone say or read in a book. And these little kind of pieces, they just stick with you. And, real life is the best inspiration, I would say. You take those, you write them down, you collect them. And then, the magic is what happens after that, is like all the ideas that can come up, because there's tons of ways that you could make this into something really cool that people can identify with. So yeah, I would encourage everyone, carry a notebook. If you have a notes app on your phone, something like that, just record it, because it is really, really special. And if you don't write it down, you're going to forget it.
Cool. How about you, Ben?
Okay, Caroline, first, you know how I like to change your titles. So how about Our Mother Was a Banjo Queen and Our Father Drank Through Every Note?
Ooh. Yeah, that works.
but I think that I pull a lot from culture, and the danger in that is when you start writing about the culture you grew up in, you transcend it, and you've got to be careful. And I think that's what Peter's talking about, with people recognizing themselves in the writing. And so you separate yourself from the culture, and you have to decide whether you're going to be kind to it, or you're going to be honest about it, and sometimes they're not the same thing. And so it's a matter of, for me to look at the culture from when I came. But then, but as far as other people, there are, it may be just a characteristic of the way they spoke, or a mannerism that they had, or maybe a car they had, because cars are great pieces of my influence, or influencers, I guess. So the aspects of those characteristics initiate ideas, and say, well, that person, it doesn't have to be that person, but it could be the characteristic or the trait of that person. And you can build on that, and start putting it together, piecing it together.
Got it. Yeah, I definitely pull from real life, and I actually find myself, like, in my day job and in different group capacities, finding myself kind of taking kind of what Ben's talking about, like taking that 100 steps back and kind of observing the different dynamics that are occurring within the room, or with among a group of people, and like analyzing the different motivators or impetus for different behaviors. And actually, that's what's really fun too, about if you research some moment in history, there's so much that's not said that you can play with and just make up, that can really act as a launching point for you know well, it's not really historic fiction. Well, I guess it's technically historic fiction. I don't know, because you're making it up, but it's based on reality, so it's a whole lot of made up stuff. But yeah, I mean, definitely real life. Brittany says, so funny. I'm teaching my middle schoolers about internal versus external conflict right now. That's awesome. It's interesting too. A lot of another thing that is, I think, helpful is what can the character what does the character have control over, and what does the character not have control over. So, like, what is happening, just simply occurring to them, that I mean, they can respond to whatever it is that's occurring to them, but they can't, they're not driving it. That, I think, is also, that kind of analysis can help in driving things forward. Caroline says, okay, Ben, you will get your hands on this book, as I am now reworking Banjo Queen. Okay? It is finished. See what you did, Ben? It's on you. It is on you.
With a new title now.
With a new title now.
With a new title. Brittany says, I hate to leave early.
You're welcome.
During
You're welcome.
Such an interesting chat, but have a good evening, everyone. Brittany, you have a fantastic evening too, and hope you can join us again in the future. Because remember, it's every Thursday. Well, as long as I'm not so sick that I can't seem to log on, but 5 p.m. Pacific time, 8 p.m. Eastern time. And always, always, always feel free to go ahead and toss some questions in the chat, even if you're joining after we've, if you're just watching a recording, because we do go back, as I mentioned, and we will review those questions. So awesome. Great. Well, holy crud. We only have like 15 minutes left. That's pretty amazing, guys. Are there any questions or topics that you guys want to cover while we're here?
I have questions that I'm always asked. It's like,
cool.
What do you prefer for like structure, point of view, tense that you're writing in, or that you have authors writing in? Do you guys have preferences?
Oh, good. Who do you want to start with?
Oh my gosh. I guess we'll start with Ben. We'll pick on you. You were late.
I usually find myself writing in the past tense, and rarely, if ever, in first person. So it's an unseen narrator telling the story, and basically because that's what I've grown up listening to, people telling stories, people Sometimes they'll say I, but they usually protect themselves somehow by saying, "No, it wasn't me. I didn't do that." But so it's past tense and in the third person.
Cool. Who do you want next?
Peter, why don't you go?
I prefer past tense as well, just because it's just something that's already happened. I have edited books and written books in present tense, and it's just very limiting because you're stuck in the moment, always in the moment, and there's not a lot of wiggle room to move around with. Past tense, you've got a lot more room to work with. You can jump to the present and back up. I mean, it's just very much much more maneuverable. As far as point of view, I prefer close third as well. I think that gives the author the most freedom because we can bounce from character to character cleanly, of course. Paragraph breaks, section breaks, whatever. But you can bounce to different characters and tell the story from different points of view, which is, I think, always more interesting. First person is again quite limiting, so I tend to avoid it if I can. But I've read stories and novels that work really well with the first person, so just taste.
Nice.
Yeah, I like complexity because I get bored easily, so I switch. I make myself sound like I have like ADHD, which I don't know, maybe I do. I'll switch between like a close third, or among a close third, and first person. But I'll have it where in the narrative it weaves among the chapters so that you don't feel like you're switching those points of view. Like you'll suddenly realize like, oh, this is close third, but it includes the first person narrator, fabulous narrator from the previous chapter. So it feels like, oh, this is just, of course, this is how it would be structured. But sometimes, I think it's going to come out one way. And as I'm writing it, I realize, oh, wait, no, this is actually, a close third, or, there's something to the story that kind of beckons for it to be like where I have to change it. Meaning like I'll originally think it's going to be a first person narrative. And then I realize, no, it needs to be a close third or a distant third, like more of like an omniscient third, in order for it to be effective and for the story to actually work. So how about you, Amy? What do you do?
Yeah, so usually I do close third, past tense. I agree with you guys. It usually gives you more flexibility. And I really like the ability of third person. Sometimes people think, oh, you're just a narrator. You don't really get to know the characters or get in their head. But I feel like, yeah, you can be in their head, but still be third person. So I really enjoy that. That being said, though, the novel that I'm, working on edits that's mine right now is a first person. It's a found narrative. So I wanted it to be really close to the narrator. And what's fun about that is it is limiting. So we're only getting her point of view, which is, lots of people are familiar with Gone Girl, where, she writes her kind of point of view. And then all of a sudden it switches and it's a totally different thing. So I really enjoy playing with point of view, structure, time. I like different kind of forms of narrative as well. I just like looking at how things are done and then saying, how can I use this in a different way? And I really enjoy when other authors do that as well.
Yeah, me too. So Caroline says, oh, Ben, by the way, made Banjo Queen a little more edgy, turned it into a murder mystery. Who killed Papa that drank through everyone's life?
Ooh, not Papa. You killed Papa.
I changed that.
You're going to change that?
That's
sorry, Caroline.
No.
I think your SOL, Ben's going to like rip it apart. But we'll find out.
Yeah.
Who knows?
We don't have
Ben,
that banjo murder weapon yet.
That. Oh, is that what it is? The banjo's the murder weapon? Okay. All right.
Gotta be. It's gotta be. Or killer bugs, maybe killer bugs.
Yeah, well, yeah, we could always just throw in some killer bugs from Tunisia. Can't hurt.
Yep.
You know, I have to like look this up. Like when he told me he did that, I was like, really? There's killer bugs in Tunisia? That's awesome.
I
Now
was
I need
thinking
to like
when you were telling the story, I was thinking that it's better to get stuck in that story than stung in that story.
That too. Yeah.
That is just wrong. Oh, very punny. That's awesome. So I actually, the other big question I get is, why did I write why do I have a pen name for the book that just came out on October 18th? And I'm going to ask everyone to, so I'll give my answer, but then I'm going to ask everyone, like, do you guys write under pen names? If so, why? If not, why? Or, you know, do you just not even think about it? So I actually wrote under a pen name for two reasons. So first, I didn't want, so Ben and Peter at the time were our acquisition editors, and I didn't want them to accept it because it's me. I wanted them to accept it because they liked the story. So I intentionally submitted it under a pen name, and but then of course I bugged the shit out of them. I mean, I bugged the hell out of them to find out if they thought it was any good. And so, but when they came back and they said, oh yeah, you know, I'd like to edit this, that's when I owned up and said, oh yeah, well, you know, I was the author. And then after that, I actually had a similar anxiety. I didn't want people to feel like, oh well, you know, she's just like abusing her, that, you know, since it's her publishing house, like, ooh, so of course you're going to publish her story, you know. I just I don't believe in that. I really, it needs, the stories should be published because they're good stories, not because of who wrote it. So so I kept the pen name to publish the story. Now that said, every single bit of publicity and every single bit question that's arisen regarding it, it always comes out that I'm the author of it. So I have a sneaking suspicion we're going to be transitioning, because it's written so that it can be one of a series. It I wouldn't be surprised if the second book and like the third book and so on are actually like Callie Metis, aka Lisa Kastner, since everyone knows anyway. So and with that, actually, I think I'm going to start with Peter and then go to Amy and then Ben.
I don't use a pen name. I'm still just a somewhat obscure writer toiling away in the basement. But hopefully someday I'll be successful enough to use something like Richard Bachman, like Stephen King did. It's my writing, it's my words. I understand your point, Lisa, that you wanted it to come in as neutral as possible before you bug the crap out of us to edit it. But it's a good book on its own merits. But yeah, I mean, there are reasons to do pen names, not plumes, but I just Peter A. Wright. That's my brand. That's what I'm sticking with.
Cool. No, and honestly, I'm a huge advocate of like stick with, because you are your brand, right? Mm-hmm. And I completely agree with it. I was just being crazily type A. Okay, Amy.
Yeah. So I don't use a pen name. And it kind of goes back. So I have been a fan of Sylvia Garcia Moreno's work. All of the she does like Mexican Gothic and Velvet Was the Night. Like she does a lot of like different kind of genres, right? She does Gothic horror, but then she does like noir kind of mystery, like crime kind of work as well. So it's very, very multifaceted what she does. And she said for a long time, she was put in a box of like, okay, you did really well with Mexican Gothic. You're going to be, an atmospheric, horror writer. And she was like, no, I'm not going to do that. And a lot of people were like, well, you're going to have to write under a pen name. You're going to have to, do all these other things because people are going to see your name and they're going to think, oh, it's just like this other book. But she was like, no, if they're my fans, they'll know that I'm like a complex person. But I thought that marketing wise, I could see why they were kind of concerned, but they're right. Like, she is a real person, and her fans really get that, and I really like it as well. So I think if you can be diverse as an author, it speaks volumes, to you, your talent. I don't have all of the genres that she does, but definitely have a little bit under my belt of things that I do. So I'm just trying to emulate great people like that who have a wide variety of things that they can produce. So I'm all for, being a little bit complex as a writer.
Cool. All right, Ben, it's on you, man.
I remember the conversation we had, and you said, well, what do you think about a pen name? And I was listening to The Doors, and L.A. Woman was playing. I said, well, Lisa's from L.A., so L.A. Woman, we just got to work the letters around. So I offered to you Mona Law. And you said, that's stupid. And I said, okay. Don't tell him that is. And, but I'll submit poems under Ben White and sometimes BB White because it's just going to be a one-time poem. So I putting Benjamin B. White on one poem that's published in one journal one time, and 3 people read it, me and my family. But on the book, Benjamin B. White seems to fit, and because there's a lot of Ben Whites out there, and sometimes I'll tell people my name is Ben White, and later on they'll say, "Oh yeah, it was Bob Smith or something like that," and so it's such a plain name anyway. But so Bob Smith, I've answered to. Yeah, that's me.
Yeah, sure. No, why not?
But have you seen Los Spookies on HBO on Friday nights? Highly recommended if you haven't. There's a character, Tati, who was listening to the audiobooks, and she was writing them down. She was transcribing the audiobooks and calling them her own. So I'm thinking about writing under the pen name of like Stephen Crane or John Steinbeck maybe, and use that as my pen name. See how that goes.
All right.
Maybe not.
Hey, you can try it.
It works on that show for Toddy, but they finally caught on to her. True character.
Yep. Caroline says plain name hides your true character, Ben. She's right, because you are anything but plain. I'm just saying. I think everybody on this live broadcast, none of us could claim being plain in any capacity. So, no. And with that, I think I'm going to thank everybody.
Mona Law.
Yeah, well, no, I'm not doing Mona Law.
Well, where did Kaylee Metis come from? Why did you choose that name?
It's the Queen of Darkness.
Oh, nice.
So it just fit with the genre. So
cool.
Yeah. So, and with that, I want to again thank everybody for joining us. If you are joining us and it is not Thursday between 5 and 6 p.m. Pacific time, 8 and 9 p.m. Eastern time, please feel free to go ahead and pop your questions in the chat. We will respond to it later. I hope you have an amazing week, and we will talk to you guys all next week. So see you then. Ciao.
Cool. See you.